welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Now, here are some verses from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Thinking first of a time to plant. Speaking generally, the years between childhood and, say, 22 or 23 for a young man or woman, for the most part settle the main outline of their character and thereby determine their history, which after all is mainly the outcome of their character. When you're young, you have wide possibilities before you of molding your character into beauty and purity, holiness and strength. For one thing, you've got no past, or next to none, written all over, which is hard to erase. Your stage of life predisposes you in favor of novelty. New things are glad things to you. You are flexible yet, like the iron running out of the blast furnace in a molten stream, which in half an hour's time will be a rigid bar that no one can bend. You have all these things in your favor in youth, and so whether you think of it or not, whether voluntarily or not, please remember that this awful process is going on inevitably and constantly in every young person, and to some extent in us all. You are planning, whether you recognize the fact or not. Well, what are you planning? Well, for one thing, you're making habits, which are really only actions hardened. It is a temptation to play with a tiger's cub for some pleasant, questionable enjoyment. But you think that it'll always keep so innocent with its budding claws not able to draw blood? It grows. It grows. And it grows according to its kind. And what was a plaything one day is a full-grown and terrible wild beast in another. You're making habits, whatever else you are making, and you are planting in your heart seeds that will spring and bear fruit according to their kind. Then remember, you are planting belief. Most of us seem to get our opinions by haphazard. They come in upon you, you don't know how. Planning is a time for forming your opinions, for forming some rational and intelligent account of yourself and the world about you. See to it that you plant truth in your hearts, under which you may live sheltered for many days. Then again, you're planting character, which is not only habit, but something more. Character is the inward response resulting in outward behavior to the moral realities of life. You are making yourselves whatever else you're making. You begin with almost boundless possibilities, and these narrow and narrow and narrow according to our actions until you have laid the rails on which you travel one narrow line that you can no longer change. A person's character is formed like a brick mason building a house. It is laid up one brick at a time. So you build up a great solid structure yourself out of all your deeds. You are making your character, your habits, your opinions, and you're making your reputation too. And you will not be able to get rid of that. This is the time for you to make a good record or a bad one in other people's opinions. And so, planter friend, please remember the permanent effects of your most fleeting acts. Nothing ever dies that a human does. Nothing. Notice in the next place that as surely as now is a time to plant, then will be a time to reap, if I may say so, a plucking up. There stands immutable for every human soul and every human deed this great solemn law of harvest, that the results are similar in kind and more in number. And so be sure that you will find that all your past runs into your present, and that the present, in fact, is very little more than the outcome of the past. This mysterious life of ours is all sowing and reaping intermingled, right to the very end. Each action is in turn the child of all the preceding, the parent of all that follows. Considering these things, which we who have perhaps experienced life before you know to be true, can you see the urgency of planting with a seed and under the watchful, loving scrutiny of the master husbandman and with the counsels of his true shepherds? And have you talked to him today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.